Welcome to the Brave Feminine Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Hamilton, and I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by my friend Greville Pabst. Greville, welcome to the conversation.
Hi, Melissa. How are you? Good to see you again.
Lovely to see you too. So, Greville, let me touch on your bio for people that haven't come across you before, and then we'll get going with our conversation. So, Greville Pabst is one of Australia's leading property commentators and a passionate advocate for the role property plays in creating personal wealth. In addition to practicing as a buyer's agent and a property advisor, Greville is executive chairman of WBP Group, a company he co-founded in 1994. Greville is widely recognised as one of Australia's leading property commentators. He's a regular contributor to the Fin Review, The Australian, The Age, has appeared on radio and television, and some people in our audience may recognise him from 10 years on the buyer's jury for The Block. Greville's an avid Western Bulldog supporter, has a wonderful family, a gorgeous boxer called Lexi, and can be found on his farm or on the tennis court when he's not out doing property work. So, Greville, you and I have known each other for over 10 years now, from sitting side by side as CEOs in a mentoring group for years. And so I know the ups, I know the downs, I know the skeletons, but don't worry, you know mine also. So really excited about our chat today. So, Greville, let's kick off for the audience, and let me just ask you, who are you as a human being?
Yeah, that's always a difficult question, and I felt quite uncomfortable when you were reading out my bio. That's probably why I don't ever watch myself on TV or replay any of these podcasts. But yeah, it's a good question. I suppose. Who am I? I think we all change as well. Who I was when I was straight out of uni and a young, aspiring property professional, and who I am today, and I think you have to change so much. But I think if you can describe me, the one thing is my persistence and my work ethic, and not being afraid to put myself out there and market myself and promote myself, because no one else is going to love me as much as I love myself, right?
I love that.
But I have to. That's taken time for me to come to terms with, and you know, one thing I said to somebody the other day is that we, more so than ever, we are in a world where there's 8.5 billion people, so you have to stand out to be successful. You have to compete. I mean, it is that you got to hustle. You got to hustle and hustle. It's competitive. It's dog eat dog out there, right? It's and that's confronting for a lot of people, and it is tough, and it's getting tougher. And I think the next 4 to 5 years are going to be even tougher. I'm already noticing in my industry, in property, it's, a lot of these people that came in over the last few years and have had a good run, and it's been easy. And some of the younger people that haven't experienced any hardship or downturn in our economy or market, they're going to disappear. Many of them, unless they sort of, they're prepared to stand out, change, work hard, and I think that's going to be good for, people like us, really, the people that have, been around and been through these times before. So, yeah, I think they're the sort of key things about me and what I do.
Who are you today? So you kind of focused on that sort of early phase, and we're going to jump right into it. But, who are you when you think about today and the differences from, that early kind of Greville?
Oh, Melissa, because I was very shy. You wouldn't think about it. Like now, I thrive on it, right? I thrive on, speaking in front of 500 people at a conference. I thrive on that, and I love it. And I love being on television, or I love being on radio. But look, I suppose that's the challenge, and the quest to improve myself and get better. Because the Greville Pabst, when I was 19 or 20, I was a very shy, introverted person. And I still am introverted. You mightn't think that, but I am, right? Like if I go into a networking event, which I do regularly, I have to talk myself up. I self-talk all the time because I'm not comfortable in that environment, but I make myself comfortable. And I work hard at that. And I say, well, you've got to go up and see this person, and you just got to go out there and stick your hand out and introduce yourself and then move on to the next person. But it's about, feeling uncomfortable and just pushing outside of those, outside the box. You have to work outside the box. You have to go out on the limb because that's where the fruit is.
So we're going to get into, and one of the things, I said to you when we connected before this was one of the things that, you took a lot of good-natured ribbing from our fellow sort of CEOs over the years around brand Greville and all these different sorts of things. But it's also one of the things that, I shared with you that I absolutely admire because it's been very intentional. It's been very deliberate. And as you said, it's been hard work because you've had to overcome sort of naturally shy and introverted tendencies to begin with. But let's go back and navigate some of that career because I think there's lessons in there for a lot of people. And you started WBP in a recession, right? So how did that kind of come about as a starting point?
Yeah, well, there were some good lessons there, which with my kids, I'm sort of always telling them about it because it was pretty tough between 1990 and 1995. Unemployment was over 10%. There weren't any jobs in property, that's for sure. Property is one of the biggest crashes I've ever seen to this day. And so, I got retrenched. I was an in-house property valuer at Westpac, got retrenched. And, I had to just get out the telephone. There was no internet in those days, right? So networking with people wasn't that easy. But at every opportunity, I would go and knock on doors. I would just cold call people. I would go on into accountant's office, solicitor's office. I'd get the yellow pages out and I would just scroll through all the names. And, I'm Greville Pabst. So this is what I do. Can I come and see you? And, phone goes down. I ring the next person, the next person. And that's how I built the business from the ground up from, initially 2 or 3 people. So at one point we got to 290 people. And it's just sweat. It's just hard work. But there's also some, I suppose, some deliberate strategy in there as well. It's about, I learned from other industries too. I learned what the real estate, I came from a valuation industry, which is quite a conservative industry. I wanted to see how allied industries worked. I really looked into the real estate industry. How do they go? How do they promote themselves? What do they do? I then got into, the mortgage broking industry, and do similar things. And I ended up, going onto the board of the Mortgage and Finance Association of Australia, which I'm not a mortgage broker, right? I'm a property guy, but I went on there and put myself out on a limb to learn from them and to build contacts. I did that deliberately, and I ended up being vice president of the Victorian Chamber of the Mortgage and Finance. At one point I probably had the opportunity to become president. I thought, look, I can't become president. I'm not even a mortgage broker, right? But it was about building my network and learning from other industries.
Yeah,
and I love that. It was a great opportunity.
Yeah, it's so smart, Greville, because I know one of the things that, I say working with a lot of professional leaders is you're not, and particularly today, you're not going to get the answer by staying focused on your own industry or staying focused on your own company. So I love you telling that part of the story about how it was kind of natural for you to look out. Like it sounds like you were always looking out and always looking for where you could learn new things from.
Yeah, and look, the tools are different today. You've got the internet, you've got social media, and look, I'm even for my age, like I'm 59 years old, right? I'm probably more active on social media than my kids.
Yeah.
But I see that as an enormous opportunity to, I used to run property seminars for 60, 80 people. And I look at it now and think, I can reach thousands of people by recording those seminars and punching it out. I mean, people nowadays and young people have so much more tools at their disposal than what I had. I had to walk door to door. Okay, so but you have to put yourself out there. I mean, it's no point being the smartest person. There are people a lot smarter than me, right? But if you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you're in the back office, right at the back, and you've got your head down and no one knows who you are, you're not going to be successful. We've both seen that, even in our own, when we
Absolutely.
were at school,
Yeah.
right? There were smart kids. I look at my cohort and class at school, and I thought, these kids were so bright. They were A grade students, right? And I was like a C grade student,
Mm.
but it doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful.
So proudest moments for you along the business journey, and then I'm really going to get into you a bit more. But so along the business journey, starting it in 1994, what are some of the highlights that stand out for you along the way?
Look, the highlights. Look, there's a number of them. I think probably my greatest achievement is building a business which I never expected to build to the size it is. Right, from nothing to 200. Now we're about 250 people. I never ever in my wildest dreams thought we would achieve that. And to become a national business as well, and probably the fourth largest property valuation supplier in the country. We do valuations for all the major banks. So that's a big achievement. Being the first, and this is about what I mentioned before about taking a risk and being first at something before your competitors. Is we developed a very unique technology 20 years ago, and we were the first property valuation company in the country to develop, to use tablets and wireless technology in the field, so that for 100 years valuers hadn't changed. And I thought, it's such a boring bloody profession, valuers, right? It's like being an order taker. Like you go to a house, you collect data, you put it into a report, and you send it off. It was all pen and paper. It hadn't changed. So I digitized that process.
Mm.
And what it meant was the valuer could go through the house, basically walk out, shut the front door, push send, and the report was on a bank's desk. That was revolutionary. And when we did that, when we won, we ended up winning Telstra. That's the other promo. We ended up winning Telstra a Business of the Year award in Victoria, and that was on the back of that technology that we drove. And technology is so important now. Look, now I'm excited now, even though I'm not CEO, but I'm really excited by AI, and I'm a boring chairman now, right? And I'm frustrated with that, and I hate that. But I'll talk to you about that in a second. But if I was the CEO and I'm pushing the CEO, I'm saying, what are you doing about AI? Like, this is exciting. I'm excited
So
about it.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I sat. I can remember to this day. We're in some hotel in Sydney, Telstra Business of the Year awards. We brought up about 20 of our staff, and we were a smaller business then. And my kids were like, I don't know, 7 or 9, and they were asleep. It was like 10 o'clock at night. My wife went up to their room and brought them down. They were in their pajamas, and and then the announcement was made. And it was like, I'm sure they still remember that. It was a proud moment for me. And I'm very emotional, right? I'm still emotional. I cry at anything these days. Even these days I do. But that's because I'm so passionate about everything I do. And I've got and I'm competitive. I like to win.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be these days.
So let's go to, you have always been a really strong tennis player. So from a really young age, and you shared something with me, it's another, very great passion of yours. You talked to me about some of that drive and some of that, almost creating that vision of success for the future for you came from learnings during that time. So tell me a little bit about that. I'm flipping you away from the business stuff now. I want to get to Greville, the Greville brand.
You're making me uncomfortable again.
Good.
No, I can. Yeah, I like to play tennis, and when I was young, I wanted to be a pro. I wasn't good enough. But, at that time, I used to go and see a sports psychologist. It's that, again, just always wanting to get better and improve myself. And so I can still remember that the conversation about visualization, just visualize yourself, walking up to the net, shaking your opponent's hand, and then holding up the trophy and that you've won the tournament. And that sort of stuck with me for a long time. And then I read a book by Napoleon Hill, Rich and what is it called? Rich and
Grow Rich.
Yeah, is it Grow Rich? Is it Grow Rich?
I think it is.
Yeah. Think and Grow Rich, right? And I started to read that book. I've given that book to my kids. I love that book because it was about, visualizing before you go to bed. Think about, what do I want? What do I want to be? And the mind is so powerful. Your subconscious thinks about it, and it's so powerful. And I thought about what is the car I want to drive? What is the house I want to live in? What is my business going to look like? What am I going to look like? How am I presenting to the market? What suit am I wearing? What are my shoes? What watches do I want to wear? And what holidays do I want to go on? What do I aspire to? And you know what? I used to dream about those things, consciously dream about them before I went to bed. And I've achieved every one of those things.
Yeah.
The car that I want us to drive, the dream house, all of those things have come true. And it is the power of positive thinking and just visualizing it. It's amazing how powerful it is. And I came from very humble beginnings. I didn't come with a silver spoon in my mouth at all. I came from western suburbs of Melbourne. Grew up in a pretty hardworking family, and one of the things I knew is that I wanted to get better. I wanted to improve. I wanted to get out of that. At the time, that we weren't poor, but we were, life wasn't as easy.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to improve and get better and stand out. And as I said earlier, I think even with this public speaking and putting myself out there, it was, I can remember still standing up on stage and, lips are quivering and my legs are shaking. And public speaking is one of the greatest fears I think many people have. But I went to Toastmasters. Okay. I went to, I got media training. I got a PR agency that looked for opportunities for me, and they coached me. They taught me how to stand, how to use your hands, how to pause, how to use silence, how to read body language. And all of those things are incredibly important. How to, when to thump the desk with, so people stand up, when to whisper.
Yeah.
So people lean forward and listen to you. How to use short grabs when you're on radio or on television so that, it's easy to edit. You might want to, maybe you might need to still edit this. There'll be there's all these little lessons and I think and learnings, but yeah, it's about improving. Everybody has strengths, right? But you don't need to focus on your strengths. Focus on your weaknesses, and that was for me, in tennis as well. You had to focus on what you're not good at. But yeah, my youngest son is he's a pretty good tennis player. He went to the US, played college tennis, and went to the Nadal Academy in Mallorca. I had all those opportunities, but in the end, when they say he wasn't good enough, that was clear. That was clear, right? Because he didn't achieve, he achieved a lot of things, and but it's that hunger.
Yeah.
I think, if you look at the Eastern Europeans and if you look at the Chinese, and they've got hunger and they've got fear. There's nothing else to turn. I don't have a plan B. I mean, my kids had plan Bs.
Right. So that explains from your perspective then there wasn't a plan B, right? Because that's what I was going to ask about the you've always, and you've just demonstrated it then as well, I think you crave feedback about how to get better. Like a lot of people don't take on feedback, or they ignore it, or they don't even look for it because they're a bit scared of it. But it sounds like you've actually really leant forward into that to get as much as you can.
Yeah, look, I've got an insatiable knowledge
Yeah.
to get better, and I do take feedback. And I work on it. I just work on it. Just work on my weaknesses.
So what do you do when you're scared? Because I know there's moments, and you said it to me that, I wasn't always brave, I was scared. And that's so normal, right? So for all of us, it's so normal. How did you, whether it's courage, bravery, whatever it is, how did you actually get over those moments? And can you remember some that were the scariest?
Yeah, no, look, it's a good question. And look, I'm very self-conscious,
Yeah.
right? I'm of myself, right? I'm so and I think I used to worry so much about my appearance, and I used to worry. And look, the appearance is important,
Yep.
but what I have learned is now I couldn't care less what anyone thinks,
Mm.
and I think that is a good thing, not to worry about what anyone else thinks. You just do what's right, for you, what feels right, and focus on what your goal is and what your strategy is, and that has to be deliberate. And my strategy was always deliberate, right? Like going on the block for 10 years and have, pretty much, yeah, all the eyeballs in Australia at one point, watching that block auction, and having, that was invaluable for me. Did it bring more business to me? Probably not. It wasn't really my demographic of where, the types of clients that I have. But what it did do, it was give me brand recognition. It people instantly recognise Greville Pabst, right? And look, they recognise me anyway because I've got an unusual name,
Well,
right? So I
yeah,
didn't have a choice but to be individual,
yeah,
right? Because my name is there's only one of me, right? It's
yeah.
not John. I'm not a John Smith, so I do stand out. And growing up, I hated my name, right? Because I couldn't, people couldn't pronounce it. They didn't know what I used to get
Yeah.
stirred at
We
school.
don't
They
want to
said,
stand out when we're young, though, do we either? We really don't.
oh, but it builds that builds a resilience.
Yeah.
That builds a resilience, and the individuality. Like it. Yeah. So I probably. What was the question again?
We've gone
I'm
around
like a
in
puppy.
circles.
Hey, look, I'm like a puppy dog, right? I just I can see, look at the puppy in the window. I can just I can go away at tangents, but I do have one very, strong burning desire to, be successful, because I do fear. I do fear. I still have fear, and fear, drives me. I could probably retire, right?
Yes.
It's not so much money. And you said to me earlier about how you changed from, early days to now. I've gone from, and many of your listeners will resonate with this, from a technician to CEO, which still probably the hardest job I think that you can have,
Yeah.
to a chairman, which is change again, to the most boring job in the world, to now conquering the valuation industry, winning awards and so forth. To, what's the next challenge for me?
Yeah.
So I want to take on the real estate industry. And so I've been at that industry now for the last 7 to 8 years, and I've got goals there to build a real estate brand. And now it's funny, people are referring me oh, you're a buyer's agent. They might not know my history of what I've done in valuations, or, you're a real estate agent. That's the first step. People start to look at me differently, and, but, my goal is to, and I haven't, I'm starting to list properties, multi-million dollar properties that, I'm not your traditional real estate agent.
No.
but I'm starting to take on some of those top salespeople that have been doing it all their lives. And I'm only doing it part-time because I've got other businesses that I have to look after.
So some people love the executive chairman role, but clearly not you. What's
I'm an entrepreneur, right? It's the one thing where, you know, reading board meeting minutes,
yeah,
pages like that. That's not me.
no,
I'm a networker. I'm an entrepreneur. I get, it's the thrill of the chase for me, right? And that's the hardest thing in business, right? You can be a good technician, you can be good at what you do, but if you can't bring in business, you don't have a business.
no.
And I tell everybody in my business, I don't know whether they listen to me. I don't know anymore, right? Sometimes when your business gets too big, you don't have control over it. I remember when I was younger and I had a small business, I wanted to have a big business. And now that I've got a big business, I want to have a small business.
A small business again, yeah.
And it's because of this control. I like to have control. I want to know what everybody's doing, and I don't know what they're doing. I know that there's been examples in my valuation business where people have rang me and said, "Greville, what's going on? Like you rejected an instruction," and I just saw red. I go, "What do you mean we rejected an instruction?"
Yeah.
I never say no. I never say no to anybody.
Yeah.
I want to please. And that's just part of my DNA. And so, I found out why did we say no? And I reversed it. I said, I found out the person that did it. I said, why did you do that? Right? We can't say no to any business. We're going to take on all business. We have to service our customers. Our customers are the most important thing we have. Without them, we don't have a business. And that starts from, the person on a reception that is greeting somebody when somebody comes into the door, to know their name, to know what coffee they drink, to engage in a conversation with them. That's part of it. When you're collecting money, it doesn't matter if you're a bookkeeper and you're collecting money. You've got to be nice. You've got to be engaging. You've got to be real. You've got to be authentic. And so, look, I don't really care anymore about what others think of me. I just, it's about my goals and what I want to do, what support myself, my family. We're not here a very long time, and so you have to, if you want to make a difference, you've got to go at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And it's tough, as I said, it's competitive, and you have to hustle and you have to bring in work. If you don't bring in work, it's tough.
Yeah.
I know a real estate agent, he makes 500 phone calls a day. He prospects, right? Now, something is going to fall out of the sky when that happens. If you make 500 phone calls a day, I don't make 500 phone calls a day, but if I had the time, I would.
Yeah.
I'm not, it's not beneath me to do that.
Yeah. So you've still got that hunger is still very much present, isn't it, as you move towards the next goal? Can I ask you, when we spent all that time together as CEOs, we had the chance to be mentored, I guess, by each other, but also by the wonderful Jeff Patterson, who was chairman of our particular group. What did you learn from Jeff?
I love Jeff, he's, like we had one-on-ones, every month for 20 years. And I suppose, what do I love about him? I love it because he was the absolute opposite to me. And that's another opportunity for me to learn.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to surround myself with people that are exactly like me. And so he was the opposite to me. He was very conservative. He was very risk averse. He was very considered, patient, and and he was a wise man, right? Well, he's a wise man.
He is. Yeah.
And so I think he shaped me a little bit. And I can remember in one of our tech groups, someone called me a fast car when I was younger, and Jeff said, sometimes fast cars crash, and And I haven't forgotten that, right? And it's true. So, you have to learn by that, and you have to, again, it's another opportunity to learn, take a deep breath. And that's what I've got to do more, is breathe, meditate, make sure I get my exercise in, make sure I drink my 2 liters of water each day.
This is new for you, right? The water intake.
Yeah, the water is. I don't look. My mum's nearly 98. She's never drank a glass of water in her life. She's 98 nearly, right? Had a little nip of scotch every night.
Water's not what it's cracked up to be then.
Yeah, exactly. But look, no, I think it is important, and so I'm doing it. I'm exercising. I do strength a couple of days a week. I'm on the court once a week, walk the dog. But yeah, we have to put fuel in our body. We have to eat well, and not drink too much alcohol. I used to drink not a lot of alcohol, but I used to give it a nudge when I was younger.
Yeah.
Binge and whatever. But now I rarely drink. I'll have 1 or 2 glasses of, maybe if I'm lucky, a week.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Greville, it leads me to the last question I ask everybody in these interviews, and it's the title of the podcast. But what does brave feminine leadership mean to you?
It's a hard question. And to me, it's not so much about the gender. It's about, as a leader, you have to be brave. And you have to take risks, and you can't worry about what somebody's going to think of you. Look, I've got lots of enemies because I'm successful, and people are, afraid I'm going to take business from them. People don't like me for that reason. Oh, well, I don't care. I don't care. It's just like, when I often, even last year we had a strategy meeting in our business, and we did some competitive analysis on what the other firms were doing, right? And I said, look, I don't care what the other firms are doing. I don't even want to look at what they're doing. I mean, why do I do that? I want to be ourselves. I want to create a brand that is completely different to them. So why should we be looking at what they're doing? Let's concentrate on what we're doing and what we can do and how we can reinvent ourselves and how we can be better. So brave leadership and look, brave female. Look, there is, one leader, an Australian woman, and her name's Robin Denholm, and she's the chair of Tesla. Right? And not many people know that, right? She owns the Sydney Kings. But to leave Australia, go to a foreign company, become the chair of, one of the biggest companies in the world, $1 trillion business, and to be able to, and she's been in that role since 2018, and to be able to control and manage one of the most enigmatic and charismatic geniuses, you call him, in the world, to be able to manage that situation for so long. I've got to give her a lot of respect as a person. I think she's done an incredible job, and she should be acknowledged in Australia more than what she is. So yeah, that's one person that I really do admire as a woman and as a brave female leader.
Amazing, Grev. Thank you so much for coming and joining the conversation and sharing you and yourself so vulnerably. So I've really enjoyed the chance to connect.
Thanks, Melissa. Appreciate it. I've enjoyed it as well.